legend. And tomorrow I'm gonna get in my car and go down to Sing Sing and walk in with Julio Medina into a maximum security prison and try and share my, my story and my hope. I have to say I have a softball in my stomach. I'm scared shit. I've been looking up at the guard towers, and I've just been thinking a lot about what this all means. Part of the definition of being a good man to me is when you are afraid, not lying about it, not running away from it, but actually facing it directly. I'm very afraid right now, but I'm not going to run away. I'm going to actually walk through those gates and try and bring some message of hope to those guys. And even if I can't speak for whatever reason, it's because my fear overcomes me. I feel that my only, my presence is a big statement. I've also got 5 copies of our book that I'm going to bring inside. I've been told that all I can bring is my license and those copies, which have been pre-approved to go through the gates. So that's what I'm going to do. Well, so Julio, how'd I do?
Fantastic. Fantastic. Brothers embrace you, but I think more importantly, man, when you speak from your heart, you can't go wrong, and you did that today. And they were moved as you were moved, and it was clear. It was clear that something happened in that room when you see grown men cry. So thank you, Tom.
Yeah. How's it feel when you go back in?
Kills me. Anytime I go back in, I've been out 10, 13 years now. Anytime I go back in, I sweat, my palms sweat, I get nauseous. At one point I thought, should I go back in? At one point I just felt it wasn't worth the hassle of going back in. And a friend of mine once said, if you ever lose that feeling, that's when you don't go back in. As long as I'm doing that affected me, that traumatized me, and I know that those men need me inside. And I need them. There's 1,800 inmates at Sing Sing, and there were 14 men waiting for me. I walked into the room, and one of them brought me a cup of coffee as I sat down, and Julio was smiling. And at that moment, my fear disappeared, and as I heard the men talk, Julio actually made them go around the room and introduce themselves to say who they were, what their crime was, how long they were sentenced, how long they had served, and why whether they were in the theological seminary, what they hoped to get out of it. And they went around the room one at a time. Most of the men were there for life or for very long sentences. Many of the men had served 15, 20. One man had served 32 years. Some of the men who had served 15, 20 years looked like they were kids. They obviously had been there since they were very young. They all smiled at me, and they immediately made me feel comfortable. I told my story and the story of the book and my connection to Julio, and explained why we have all these events coming up, but I wanted to start the book tour with them at Sing Sing. Why, to me, it all really comes down to the fact that we are alike. We are not different, and that we all have these moments where everything changes and where our manhood is determined. And Julio brought that up after I was done. I probably talked for 45 minutes and asked the members of the class to share their moment. I had shared about when I had to call my mother and explain why, even though I'd been on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, I had no place to go. I'd been kicked out of the house. And they went around the room, and
it was honestly mind-blowing. I heard about, two men shared about the death of their mothers while they were incarcerated. Julia later explained to me that you get the option of a deathbed visit or a funeral. You don't get both. You have to choose. And if you choose the deathbed visit, you go in shackles, and you go with 4 armed guards, 2 on each side. So one of the men described how he was shuffling down the hall of the hospital where his mother was about to die, and the nurses were pleading with the guards to take the shackles off, and they would not. And in the end, they put a blanket over his arms so the mother wouldn't have to see the shackles. And the inmate described that his turning point was that he could not hug his mother as she died. Another man described becoming a father incarcerated, and his wife getting out of the hospital and arriving at the visiting room with the baby, his son, and handing his son to him so he could hold his own child. And he only got to hold the child for 5 minutes, and then had to give the baby back and go back to his cell. And that just that exposure to his own fatherhood had changed everything. The stories just went on and on and on, and it was truly inspiring to hear the resilience of these guys, and to try and imagine what it must be like to spend decades behind bars and keep a positive attitude, and to not give in, basically, not give in to what they call prison culture, and to maintain an identity outside those bad influences, and to try and be a good man despite being in a place like Sing Sing. They wanted me to come back, and I said I would.